John Miller never liked walking home late at night. The streets in his small town were quiet, almost too quiet. Shadows stretched long under the weak streetlights. A cool wind moved through the empty road, making the signs creak. It was the kind of night where even the air felt like it was holding its breath. He adjusted his backpack and walked faster. His boots hit the pavement with a steady rhythm. He was thinking about his unpaid bills and the broken car in his garage. Normal problems. Small problems. The kind of problems that made sense in the real world. But tonight, the world was about to stop making sense. First, it was the sound. A faint hum like a faraway machine. It came from somewhere above. At first, John thought it was a helicopter. But the sound was too smooth, too steady. It felt like it was inside his head, vibrating in his bones. Then the streetlights flickered, once, twice, then stayed dim. The shadows around him shifted, as if they were alive. John slowed his steps and looked up. The night sky was clear. Stars scattered like salt over black velvet. But right above him, the stars disappeared. Something huge blocked them out. It was a shape, dark and round, silent except for that strange hum. The air grew heavier, pressing on his chest. John's heart started to race. Every instinct told him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. It was like the air had turned to glue. Then came the light. A sudden, blinding blue beam shot down from the dark shape. It swallowed the street, covering him from head to toe. It wasn't warm or cold. It was nothing and everything at the same time. His ears popped, like he was deep underwater. The world tilted sideways. His body rose into the air, weightless. John wanted to shout, but no sound came out. In seconds, the street was gone. The cold night air was gone. Everything was gone. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in a small glass room. The walls curved like the inside of a bubble. The floor glowed faintly. Outside the glass, shadows moved. He stepped back, his breath fogging the transparent wall. Then they came tall figures with silver skin that seemed to ripple under the light. Their heads were long, their black eyes large and unblinking. They had no mouths, just smooth, pale faces. One of them leaned close to the glass, staring at him. Its eyes reflected his own face. Small and trapped, it raised a long, thin hand and pressed it to the glass. The skin shimmered like liquid metal. Then it spoke, not with a mouth, but inside his mind. The voice was cold and slow. You will not be harmed. If you obey. The meaning was clear. But the way it looked at him made his stomach turn. There was no kindness in those black eyes, only calculation. John didn't know if it was lying or telling the truth, but he knew one thing. He was not safe. The silver figures moved away, speaking in a language of clicks and tones. The sound made his head ache. John pressed his hands to his temples. Through the noise, he heard something else. A sound that froze him in place. Screams. They were faint, distant, but human. He turned, pressing his ear to the glass. It was coming from somewhere deep in this strange place. Men, women, voices full of fear and pain. His chest tightened. He wasn't alone, and whatever had taken him had taken others too. He slammed his palm against the glass, shouting, "Hey, who's there?" The voices didn't answer, or maybe they couldn't. The silver creatures turned their heads toward him. The one with the rippling skin returned and placed its hand on the glass again. "You will remain," it said in his head. Its tone left no room for argument. John's mind raced. Why him? Why now? And what did they want from humans? The humming sound grew louder, vibrating in his bones again. A thin mist began to leak from the ceiling of his cell. It smelled strange, metallic. His vision blurred. He stumbled to the corner, trying to stay awake. Through the haze, he thought he saw shapes moving in the mist, hands reaching for him, voices whispering in the dark corners of his mind. The last thing he heard before his knees hit the glowing floor was the same cold voice. "You are here for the test, then." Nothing. John woke up to silence. The glass walls of his cell were still there, but the glow on the floor was brighter. The mist was gone. replaced by a clean, cold air that smelled like rain. For a moment, he thought maybe it had been a dream. Then he saw the shadows moving outside again. Two silver-skinned aliens stood by a floating table covered in strange tools. They didn't look like weapons, more like things a dentist might use. Long needles, smooth black stones, small silver discs that floated by themselves. One alien tapped the glass, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. John stepped back, but there was nowhere to go. The taller alien raised its hand and pointed. To the table. The command was silent, but heavy in his mind. Come. The moment he stepped out, the floor beneath him shifted. It wasn't solid anymore. It moved, carrying him toward the table. No matter how hard he tried to step away, the floor pushed him forward. They made him lie down. Thin straps rose from the table and wrapped around his wrists and ankles. He could still move his head, but not his body. One alien leaned over him, its black eyes scanning his face like it was reading a book. Then it started. Not pain. At least, not the kind he expected. A low vibration filled his skull. Images flashed in his mind, memories he hadn't thought about in years. His first bike, his mother's laugh the time he broke his arm at school. The images came faster, harder, as if someone was flipping through the pages of his life. John gasped. Stop. Get out of my head. The alien's voice slid into his thoughts. We look, we measure, we decide. The smaller alien placed one of the floating black stones on his chest. It felt warm, almost alive. The stone pulsed, and suddenly the memories changed. Now they weren't his. He was seeing things he had never lived. Red skies, burning cities, creatures running from something huge and unseen. He felt the fear of thousands of beings at once. It was too much. John clenched his jaw, trying to push the visions away. But the more he resisted, the more the stone pushed back. The taller alien stepped closer, its voice sharp now, strong. Not normal. Human resists. John's eyes darted to the far wall. There, behind a sheet of misty glass, was another cell. A shape moved inside it, small, thin. It pressed against the glass, and for a moment, he saw a face. A human face, pale and terrified. A woman. She mouthed two words, slow and clear. Help me. Before John could react, the smaller alien noticed and waved its hand. The mist thickened, hiding the cell from view. John's chest tightened. He wasn't the only one here, and maybe not the first. The taller alien turned to the smaller one and spoke in that clicking language again. John caught one word in English this time. Resistance. The smaller alien tilted its head, almost curious. It picked up a silver disc from the table and pressed it to John's temple. A sharp cold spread through his skull. The vision stopped. The room snapped back into focus. But the disc stayed there, humming softly. The alien stepped back and said, "You are not finished." The straps released. The floor moved again, carrying him back to his cell. The glass door slid shut. The taller alien leaned in one last time and whispered into his thoughts, "Sleep, human. Tomorrow we see if you survive." John sat on the floor, shaking. Somewhere in the distance, the woman's voice called out again. This time, he answered in a low, steady voice, "I will." Cliffhanger. Outside his cell, two alien guards argued. One of them glanced at John with something like fear. Asterisk. John didn't sleep that cycle. He didn't even know if the ship had a day or night. The light in his cell stayed the same, cold and pale. Every time he closed his eyes, the images from the test came back. The burning cities, the screaming voices, and the woman's face. The second time he saw her wasn't through the glass. It was in his mind. He had been staring at the wall when the air seemed to thicken. A soft whisper brushed against his thoughts. "Can you hear me?" John sat up, heart pounding. He scanned the room. No one was there. But the voice came again, clearer. "Don't speak out loud." They listen. John thought the words, slow and unsure. "Who are you?" There was a pause, then the answer. "Sarah, I'm 2 sections away from you. They've had me for I don't know how long. John leaned forward, his mind racing. How are you in my head? I wasn't before. But the tests, they changed something. I think it's the same for you. John glanced at the faint outline of the black disc still stuck to the side of his head. He'd tried to pull it off earlier, but it felt fused to his skin. Now he wondered if it was doing more than the aliens had admitted. Sarah's voice grew sharper, urgent. You have to listen. Humans don't last long here, John. Not like the others. Others? She sent him a flash of an image, quick, but enough to make his skin crawl. Rows of cells like his, but the beings inside weren't human. Some had too many eyes, some had none. Some had shells, wings, or moving shadows where their bodies should be, and in every image, the same thing. Fear. They take, and take. Until there's nothing left, Sarah whispered. I've seen people forget their own names. Forget they were human. John's fists clenched. Why? What do they want? There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. Not all of them agree. Some think we're dangerous. John didn't understand. Humans were tiny compared to the silver giants. What could they possibly fear? Before he could ask, the wall of his cell lit up with moving shapes. The silver creatures were back, but this time they weren't coming for him. They were moving toward a door at the end of the corridor. Through the half-open panel, John caught a glimpse, another glass cell. And inside it, Sarah. She looked weaker than in the vision, her skin pale, hair tangled. Her eyes met his for only a second before the alien stepped between them. One of the creatures placed a silver ring over her head. The ring pulsed with a dull red glow. Sarah's scream wasn't loud, but it cut straight into his skull. John staggered, clutching his head. It wasn't just sound. It was pain shared between them. Then, just as fast, the pain stopped. Sarah sagged in the alien's grip. The silver creature turned its head toward John's cell. For the first time, he thought he saw something in its black eyes. Not curiosity, not anger. Fear. The door to her cell shut. The aliens left without a sound. John sank to the floor, his pulse racing. Sarah's voice returned in his mind, faint and shaking. They know. You're different too. Cliffhanger. A low alarm began to echo through the ship, not the calm hum of before, but a warning, and it wasn't for the prisoners. Asterisk. The alarm was not just sound. It was vibration. It rolled through the floor, up the walls, into John's bones. The steady hum of the ship, that strange heartbeat he'd heard since his capture, had changed. Now it stuttered, stopped, started again, like the ship itself was afraid. Outside his glass wall, the silver creatures moved fast, no slow. Graceful steps now. They ran, thin hands flying over glowing panels, their black eyes darting to the ceiling. They spoke in that clicking language, but the tone was sharp, urgent. Something was wrong. Sarah's voice slid into John's mind. Stay still, they're looking for it. Looking for what? John thought back, but before she could answer, the lights dimmed, every wall, every panel, every glowing floor strip, all of it faded to a cold, sick blue. In the sudden gloom, John saw movement outside the far window, not a ship, not an asteroid, a shadow. It was huge. So huge the ship's frame groaned, as if the shadow's presence bent space itself. Sarah's voice was tighter now. Don't look at it too long. It notices. John turned his gaze away, but the shape still pressed at the edge of his vision. It had no clear outline, like smoke underwater, but in the middle of it, faint lights pulsed, slow and steady, not like stars, more like eyes. The silver creatures were panicking now. Panels flashed warnings. Walls shifted as if sealing off parts of the ship. John saw two aliens grab a prisoner from a nearby cell, something insect-like, and vanish into a side corridor. It was like they were offering it to the shadow. A sudden impact shook the floor. The glass of John's cell shimmered. From somewhere deep in the ship came a long, low sound, not mechanical. It was a call, a sound that seemed to come from inside the shadow outside. John's chest tightened, not from fear, but from a strange pull, like something out there wanted him to come closer. Sarah's voice returned, sharper now. That thing. It's older than them, older than all of this. They call it the listener. Listener? It hears thoughts, feelings, maybe even memories. As if to prove her words, John felt something brush his mind. Not like Sarah's quiet whisper. This was bigger, deeper, a presence that felt like standing at the edge of an endless ocean. It didn't speak in words, but in impressions, curiosity, hunger, recognition. And then, surprise. The sensation made John stumble back. It had recognized him, not as prey, but as something it had been waiting for. Outside, the silver creatures fired beams of white light into the shadow. The light bent and vanished, swallowed without trace. The listener didn't move away. If anything, it pressed closer. The ship's metal frame screamed under the pressure. One alien near John's cell looked right at him, its black eyes wide. It pointed, shouting something in its clicking tongue. To the others, they all froze. Then to John's shock, they didn't come for him. They ran the other way. The floor under his feet shifted suddenly. The glow changed color. His glass wall dissolved like mist. Sarah's voice hit his mind hard, urgent and fast. John, whatever's happening, this is your chance. But before he could move, the shadow's presence flooded his mind again. Not asking permission, just pulling. The listener wanted him to step closer to the window, and for reasons he couldn't explain. He wanted to obey. Cliffhanger. A deep crack ran through the ship's hull above him, and for a split second, he saw something from the shadow reaching in. Asterisk. The crack in the hull spread like ice on glass. Thin streams of silver vapor leaked into the air. The ship groaned, and from the darkness outside, something slid through the opening. It wasn't a claw or a tentacle. It was a strand of shadow. Black, thin, moving like smoke. It curled in the air, twisting toward John's cell. Every step it took seemed to stretch the space around it. One moment it was far away, the next it was inches from his face. John didn't move, couldn't move. The shadow reached the edge of the cell and stopped. It didn't touch him. Instead, it hovered close, and in his head. He heard everything, not words, memories, his own flashes of his life tumbled through his mind. His father teaching him to fix an engine, the sound of rain on the garage roof, the night his dog died. Each memory was touched, examined, and kept, but it wasn't stealing them. He could still remember. It was copying them. The presence pressed deeper, pulling out not just moments, but feelings, stubbornness, rage, the will to fight even when losing. Then it stopped. It was as if the listener had found something it didn't expect. John felt it. Not curiosity anymore, but excitement, and then something stranger. The presence began giving. Not memories, but someone else's. Visions hit him. Fast, not his, not human. Cities under red skies, oceans made of glass, beings made of light standing against storms of darkness. And in every vision, the same figure appeared. Tall, armored, human-shaped, holding something that burned like a small sun. John staggered, gripping the wall. What are you showing me? He thought. The answer wasn't words. It was a single, overwhelming feeling. You are like them, outside. The silver creatures had gathered at the far end of the corridor, their black eyes fixed on John. One of them clutched a glowing device. It pulsed in rhythm with the listener's shadow. They shouted in their clicking language. John didn't understand the words, but the fear in their voices was clear. The shadow withdrew from the crack, but not all the way. It lingered near John's cell like a guard or a protector. Sarah's voice hit his mind. John, do you see it? Yeah, and it's not trying to kill me. That's why they're afraid, she whispered. They can fight it, but they can't fight us if it chooses to help. The listener pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Then it began sliding along the corridor. Where it passed, the ship's lights flickered and died. Doors hissed open without touch. Guards scattered like insects. John felt the pull again. It wanted him to follow. Sarah's voice grew urgent. If you go with it, there's no coming back the same. But maybe that's the only way out. John's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed this was insane. But the alien's fear. The visions. Something told him this was the path they never expected a human to take. He stepped out of his cell. The shadow waited, like it had been waiting for him all along. Cliffhanger. As soon as his foot touched the corridor floor, the listener wrapped the shadow around him, and the world dissolved into black. Asterisk. The blackness around John wasn't empty. It was alive. Shadows moved like currents in deep water. Whispers passed through them, too quiet to understand, and at the center of it all, the listener, it didn't have a face, but somehow he felt it watching him. Not just watching, measuring. Then came the flood. Not images this time, not words, but understanding in one instant. John knew the layout of the ship, every corridor, every hidden passage, every lock. He felt the hum of its engines deep in his chest. He could sense the movement of the guards, as if their footsteps were tapping inside his skull. When the blackness faded, he was no longer in his cell. He stood in a narrow maintenance corridor. No doors, no guards. Just the soft glow of the walls, and the constant hum of the ship's systems. But now, the hum sounded different, like a language, and he could hear it. John. Sarah's voice was in his mind, sharp and confused. Where are you? I can't see you. I'm still here, he thought back. But something's changed. I think I can talk to the ship, as if to prove it. The light above him flickered when he focused on it. He reached deeper. Somewhere far down the corridor, a locked door slid open. No panel, no key, just his will. Sarah's voice caught in his mind. John. That's not human. Footsteps echoed ahead. 2 silver guards rushing toward him. John didn't run. Instead, he thought about the floor beneath them. A small vibration grew. The smooth surface rippling like water. The guards stumbled. Fell hard. Before they could rise, the corridor lights went black. John moved past them in the dark, without a sound. Each step felt easier, like the ship was no longer resisting him. Maybe the listener had done more than just give him knowledge. Maybe it had made the ship listen to him. He reached the detention wing. Through the glass walls, prisoners stared at him. Dozens of them, some human, most not. Fear and hope mixed in their eyes. Sarah's voice was urgent. You have to get to the core. It's the only way to stop them from running with us. John reached out with his mind. Somewhere deep in the ship, the core responded. A low, steady thrum like a heartbeat. He could feel its heat, its power, but something else too. A presence, faint but cold. The alien commander was there, and it knew he was coming. The walls around him shimmered. A defense field snapped into place. John focused. The energy pulsing through the barrier slowed, flickered, then vanished. He walked through as if it had never been there. Every door between him and the core opened before he touched it. Every camera turned away. The ship wasn't just obeying, it was helping. But when he reached the final chamber, the temperature dropped. The alien commander stood waiting. Its skin was darker than the others, its body taller. In its hands, it held a weapon, a long staff that glowed at both ends. Its voice cut into John's mind like a blade. You are not of us. But now you are not of them either. John didn't answer. He stepped forward, and behind him, the walls of the ship began to shift. Slow at first, then faster, panels opening, lights flaring, floor plates moving like waves. The commander's eyes widened. For the first time, it understood. The ship wasn't theirs anymore. Cliffhanger. The commander raised its weapon, but before it could strike, the floor itself rose up between them like a shield, obeying John's will. The alien commander's strike hit the wall of metal that rose from the floor. Sparks flashed, the weapon's glowing tips cut deep, but the wall healed itself instantly, like the ship wanted to protect John. He stepped sideways, keeping his eyes on the commander. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the chamber. You built this ship to control. Now it listens to me. The commander lunged again. John didn't block. He let the floor vanish under the alien's feet. The commander dropped into the dark void below. A heartbeat later, the floor closed again. No sound came from the space beneath. Sarah's voice filled his mind. John, the prisoners. You have to get them out now. John reached for the core. It wasn't like pressing buttons. It was like speaking to an animal. The ship responded to his thoughts. Corridors reformed. Cells slid open. Paths lit up in pale blue lines. He saw it all through the ship's own eyes. Humans, insect-like beings, creatures made of light, all running toward the hangar. The silver guards tried to stop them, but every door they touched locked in their faces. Every weapon they raised powered down. The ship was turning against its makers. Sarah appeared in the hangar first, half dragging a wounded prisoner. John's mind followed her, guiding the escape pods to unlock and power up. He could feel the relief in the crowd as the pods sealed shut one by one. But the ship's sensors flashed a warning. The silver creatures were trying to override the launch. John acted before they could. He sealed every door leading to the hangar, not with locks, but by merging the walls into solid metal. The aliens pounded from the other side, their voices sharp and desperate. John didn't let them in. He stayed connected to the ship as the last pod left. Sarah's voice reached him from inside her pod. John, come on, you have to leave too. But he didn't move. He was still linked to the ship's core, and he had an idea. The aliens thought he'd simply let the prisoners escape. They didn't know he was about to make sure they could never leave the ship themselves. John reached deeper into the systems. He found the navigation controls and locked them permanently. Now the ship couldn't jump, couldn't move far. It would drift here, trapped in the shadow of the listener, and the listener would decide their fate. The alien commander's voice returned in his head, faint and full of rage. You cannot hold us forever, human. John's reply was steady. I don't need to. I just need to give you to something older, outside. The listener moved closer. The shadow wrapped the ship. John felt the cold, deep presence brush his mind one last time. Approval. Only then did he step into the final escape pod. The ship's systems released him. The pod shot away, spinning through the dark. He watched through the small window as the alien vessel shrank behind him. The shadow swallowed it whole. And then nothing. In the pod's silence, Sarah's voice came again. You didn't just save us, did you? John looked out at the stars. No, he said. I made sure they'll never come back. The rescue fleet found them hours later. But even as the light of home grew brighter ahead, John knew the story wasn't over. Somewhere out there, that listener still held his memories, and maybe it would call for him again. Asterisk.